Hi, I'm Bob McLean. Thanks for checking out my cybersecurity channel. In this segment, I'm going to talk about cyber threat intelligence, CTI. And I'm going to talk about cyber threat intelligence because threat intelligence, you may have noticed, seems to be an advantage when conducting business on the internet. Systems like the security information and event management systems, when they're coupled with threat intelligence, they incorporate threat intelligence to make decisions on whether an activity is malicious or not. The filtered DNS services, when incorporated or when incorporating and using threat intelligence, make much better decisions. And not all threat intelligence is the same, and we as the general public do have access to some fantastic threat intelligence. And that comes from the MITRE Corporation, which is a company funded by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST. The MITRE Corporation published the ATT&CK matrix. And ATT&CK is an acronym. It's ATT&CK. And the ATT&CK matrix, which I've done a screenshot of and stuck at the front, and I'm going to put links in the description as well. The ATT&CK matrix is a knowledge base. First of all, it stands for adversary, tactics, techniques, and common knowledge. It's a database, or a body of knowledge is the better term. Body of knowledge compiled from a lot of research data that has been able to identify 10 different categories of activity, 10 intended goals, like initial compromise, establishing persistence, executing code. Those goals of an attacker are mapped to very specific exploit techniques. And how does that help us as business owners and business leaders? Using this kind of body of knowledge in the background is going to always help us improve our ability to prevent an intrusion, and when it occurs, detect it and respond to it. One of the things that stands out about the ATT&CK matrix is that advanced persistent threat groups, APTs, do things the same way rather consistently. And there may be a group, for example, when I had been talking about an attacker establishing a foothold, that's actually 3 categories of activity on the ATT&CK matrix. Initial contact, code execution, establish persistence. Now, you don't need to know these things, but that's really what's required to establish a foothold. So the attacker can come back and use that initial compromise to further the attack. So what does this do for us? Well, because thanks to MITRE, we are able to associate particular types of compromises or particular tactics to execute this one thing. And we see that, well, maybe half the groups that have been identified use that. And it's not all of them, but it's going to be a good number of them. And we said, well, we can improve our ability to detect that kind of activity with a service that company A or company X is pitching. And we can say, well, we want to make sure that this works because this represents 10 or 20 different threat groups and they do things the same way. It's like their own personal style. If somebody in that criminal gang is really good at Windows registry keys, the registry key manipulation, for run on boot is going to be in all of their attacks, because that's how they get to the next step before they have their desired impact, which is data theft or encryption or both, or another several impacts are in the impact column. But this gives us the ability to take, in our high-level security plan, eliminate the next largest gap in our ability to detect and respond to an attack. Now, we're not just guessing. We have very specific things that these next solutions will have to be able to do, and they get incorporated into the RFP, or they get incorporated into the proof of concept and the tests that that company will do to win your business. So being aware of this attack matrix is important, because you got to realize it's not one and done. And perhaps from all of the talking I've been doing, you realize there's no silver bullet and there are no silver bullet solutions, but this iterative process. And the more difficult your environment becomes to get, to compromise, the more likely the attackers will just find an easier target. It's like the old steering wheel lock in New York City. It takes a crook 5 seconds to get through it, but it's 5 seconds they don't have to spend on the next car. It's that mentality. They're criminals. They're lazy. They're looking for a big payday. They see this one. And there are some things that they're used to overcoming. We can detect access lists or IP addresses. They can overcome. They can change the IP address. We block DNS from exiting our environment. They can work around many of the blocks that we throw, and then there might just be, well, if we can do all of that and then stop them at registry key manipulation through another monitoring tool or another another process or procedure to ensure that nothing's changed in the configuration of the kernel of the operating system. We do all these steps and they give up and they go to the next one. So this is the benefit of all of this work that's going on behind the scenes. When there's another term or two that you're going to run into that is associated with the MITRE attack matrix, and that is red teaming and blue teaming and purple teams. When you take a tactic and you are able to address it through a new system or tool or process or procedure, and you want to test it to make sure that your defense is as you think it is, it's just like a penetration test for your outside IP addresses. You're going to want to test the various steps and things you take, or the measures you take to implement this kind of defense. The tester is called the red team, and the defender is called the blue team. When it's the same team, and we say, hey, in a cooperative fashion, somebody says, can you find attacks that will test this? And working together, it's the purple team. There are instances where companies have red teams, just their whole job is to try to break into things, and the blue team is always just trying to defend against everything. And I don't know that is as productive as looking at the next largest gap based on the number of threat actors that use that gap, or how prevalent the features they exploit are in your environment. There are a lot of ways to look at this, but I would say a cooperative approach is going to yield more faster. But we are pretty far from that. We want to get to the point where we have a high-level security plan, and the strategy incorporates this constant improvement, continuous improvement in the ability to defend against the largest threats to the environment. And those threats are not random or supposed or guessed. There's data. And the data's in the MITRE attack matrix, which is a very excellent knowledge base. So I know this one ran long. Thanks for hanging in, and I hope you find it useful. Until we speak, take care.